If I had known that hug would be our last, I would have held on to my mother a little longer. Maybe I would have whispered, "Please don't send me," just loud enough for her heart to hear, not her ears. But I didn't. I just smiled, zipped up my sweater, and climbed into the back seat, like a good daughter. My father didn't say much on the drive to the school. He gripped the steering wheel like it had wronged him somehow, staring straight ahead as though if he looked at me, his resolve would crack. They called it a faith-based, all-girls academy, tucked away in a quiet town far from the noise and danger of the city, with long brick walls and a wrought iron gate that groaned like it hadn't been opened in years. "It's for your own good," my mother said for the 100th time. "No distractions. No boys. No temptations. Just God and your books." Funny, they feared boys would harm me. They never imagined it would be the people they trusted. As we pulled into the driveway, a woman in a stiff blue uniform and glasses too large for her face approached. "You must be Mr. and Mrs. Obiara," she said politely, though her eyes flicked to me with something colder than curiosity. "We're glad to welcome Ivanna into our institution." I hated the word institution. It felt like a prison pretending to be a school. They didn't even walk me to my dorm. One last hug. One last "be safe." Then the car was gone, swallowed by the long road that brought me here. I stood there with 2 bags, a dry throat, and a stomach that wouldn't stop twisting. The first girl I met didn't smile. She passed by in the hallway, dragging her feet, her eyes empty like her soul had been misplaced. "Don't talk too much," she murmured as she brushed past me. "They don't like questions here." I hadn't even unpacked yet, and already I wanted to run. That night, I lay on the hard bunk bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. The dorm lights had been switched off at exactly 9 p.m. No phones, no talking, just the eerie creak of an old building trying to keep its secrets. That's when I decided to start writing everything down, every feeling, every strange look, every shadow that lingered too long. Not because I thought it would save me, but because I needed a friend. Even if it was just a blank page. My name is Ivanna. I was 16, and that was the last time I ever felt safe. Mornings began at 4:30 a.m. No alarms, just a loud, metal bell that echoed through the dorm like a war siren. We had exactly 15 minutes to brush, shower, and dress. Uniforms had to be perfectly ironed. Hair tightly packed. No makeup, no jewelry, no complaints. Obedience is holiness, they said. Structure is protection. But protection from what? No one ever said. And maybe that was the point. There was no laughing in the dining hall. You prayed before you touched your spoon and kept your eyes on your food. If you were caught whispering, your plate was taken away. If you were caught sneaking snacks or hiding bread rolls, you were summoned. We didn't know where they took the girls who were summoned. But when they returned, if they returned, they were never the same. One day, a girl named Halima disappeared. We were told her parents withdrew her. But her things stayed on the bed for 3 whole days. Her toothbrush, her comb, her tiny journal with a cracked leather cover. Then on the 4th day, everything was gone. Just like that. Don't ask questions, the dorm matron warned. Her name was Madame Celine, and she moved like a ghost in heels, always appearing when you least expected. Questions are the first step to rebellion. Rebellion leads to destruction. We nodded. We always nodded. What else could we do? But my mind was loud, and my diary was filling fast. There were weird inspections at night. Random. Quiet. You'd be asleep and feel a presence hovering, opening your locker, flipping through your notebooks. One night, I pretended to be asleep and felt someone lift my blanket slightly. I didn't breathe until they were gone. Then there were the cameras. Hidden ones. I spotted a tiny lens in the corner of the bathroom mirror once. I told myself I was wrong. I told myself I was paranoid. But deep down I knew. This wasn't just a school. It was a cage. A cage dressed in scripture and structure, designed to convince you it was home. The only person who smiled was a female teacher named Miss Joy. She taught literature. Young, pretty, always kind, but her smile never reached her eyes. And when our eyes met, she'd quickly look away, like she was afraid of seeing something in me she once had in herself. One afternoon, she slipped me a note inside a poetry textbook. Be careful. They're watching you. Be invisible. I reread that note for days. I wanted to ask her what she meant. But 2 days later, she stopped showing up for class. They said she had been transferred. Red flags were waving everywhere, and somehow no one seemed to notice, or maybe we'd all been taught to look away. I began hiding my diary under the loose tile beneath my bed. I wrote by flashlight under my blanket, praying no one heard the faint scratching of my pen. Because if they found it, they would find me. It was a Tuesday, cloudy, humid, the kind of weather that made your skin feel heavy. The day started like every other, cold bath water, silent breakfast, lifeless stares. But something shifted during morning assembly. Madame Celine stood on the podium, clipboard in hand, her smile strained and unnerving. 3 girls have been selected for a special outing, she announced. A reward for their good behavior. My name was the 3rd one she called. The girls around me whispered congratulations, envy, excitement. But all I felt was dread. No one had ever come back from a special outing with a smile. Some didn't come back at all. I was told to pack an overnight bag, to look presentable, to represent the school, to trust the process. I obeyed. I always obeyed. A black SUV arrived that evening. Tinted windows. A man in a wine-colored kaftan stepped out. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't look at us. He simply nodded once, and the matron pushed us forward. We drove in silence. No music. No talking. I watched the road disappear behind me like the last thread of safety being pulled. We arrived at a large compound, marble floors, thick curtains, the smell of expensive cologne, and something else. Something metallic. A man everyone called Al-Haji walked in. He was old. Too old. His teeth were yellowed with tobacco stains. His smile made my stomach twist. That night, that's when I learned what the special outing really meant. I won't write the details. I can't. But I bled. And afterward, no one gave me a tissue, or a hug, or a chance to scream. The next morning, I was dropped back at school like a delivery. No questions asked. No one spoke of it. Not even the other girls. We weren't victims. We were secrets. And secrets don't speak. That was the first time I cried while writing in my diary. Not just because of what happened, but because I realized no one would believe me if I told them. Not my parents who thought they were protecting me. Not the school who dressed abuse in rewards. Not even the girls who had learned to numb themselves to survive. The more I wrote, the more I felt like I was documenting my own funeral in slow motion. My smile faded. My laughter died. I stopped raising my hand in class. I stopped praying. I stopped hoping. But I didn't stop writing, because that was the only thing they couldn't take from me. And if they ever found this diary, I knew they'd come for me too. They said we were free during visiting days, but no one ever came for me. Your parents sent their love, the staff would say, handing me a small bag of provisions. They're very proud of your obedience. Obedience. They used that word like it was holy, as if staying silent in the face of evil was a virtue. I wanted to scream, I'm not obedient. I'm broken. But I just nodded and said thank you. That's what broken girls do. We nod. One Sunday, the school chaplain preached about purity and sacrifice. He looked straight at me during his sermon, as though he knew exactly what I'd lost, or worse, what I'd been made to give. After service, he called me aside. Ivanna, you're a very special girl, he said, his hand resting on my shoulder longer than necessary. Some of us are chosen to suffer so that others can be saved. Don't waste your pain. I wanted to ask him how many other girls had been chosen, but I already knew. Later that night, I wrote in my diary, if this is freedom, then slavery wears a better disguise. But something inside me shifted after that day. A quiet rebellion started to grow. Not loud, not reckless. just aware. I began observing everyone, the staff, the guards, the drivers, even the kitchen workers. I watched how the special girls were chosen. I noticed patterns. The ones with no visitors were picked more often. The ones who cried alone in their beds. The ones whose pain wouldn't be missed. It was never random. It was calculated. One night, I found a girl named Ada bleeding in the dorm bathroom, her lips swollen, her eyes wild. I held her hand and whispered, "They won't believe us, but write it down anyway." She looked at me like I'd handed her a key, and that night, she started her own diary too. We were no longer just victims. We were witnesses. But hope, even the smallest kind, is dangerous here. Because hope makes you believe you can escape. And I thought I had, when I was chosen again this time for an academic tour in the city. I packed my bag. I smiled. I told myself, this is my chance. The driver said we'd stop somewhere before the tour began. "We need to see someone first," he muttered. That someone was a different AL1VE. Another old man. Another room. Another lie. But this time, something in me refused to comply. I bit him. I screamed. I ran. They caught me, of course. But for the first time, I fought. That night, they locked me in a tiny room under the chapel. No window. Just walls and darkness. No one came. No food. No light. Only silence. And in that silence, I realized they would rather kill me than let me talk. So I wrote one last letter, not in my diary, but on pages I tore from my hymn book. I sealed it inside a plastic bag and hid it inside the old toilet tank in the chapel bathroom. If you're reading this now, it means they failed to silence me completely. I lost track of time in that room. I don't know how long I was there, maybe days, maybe just hours that felt like centuries. But I remember the sound that finally broke the silence. Footsteps. 2 pairs. Slow. Cautious. Through the crack beneath the door, I saw black shoes and soft pink sandals. Then whispers. "Is she alive?" "Open it slowly, don't let the others see." The door creaked open. Madame Celine's face appeared, first tight-lipped, unreadable. Behind her was Sister Nora, the school nurse, her eyes darting like she was afraid of being caught. "She bit him," Madame Celine muttered. "The AL1VE is furious. We have to clean this up. Fast. Clean this up." Like I was a stain. I was too weak to speak. My throat was dry, lips cracked. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just stared. And in that moment, I knew they weren't here to save me. They were here to make sure no one ever heard from me again. But Sister Nora surprised me. That night, after they dragged me to the infirmary and injected me with something that burned through my veins, I saw her again. She slipped into the room when everyone else was asleep, carrying a cup of warm water and a biscuit. "You're not safe here," she whispered. "Whatever you've written, make sure someone finds it." I blinked, barely able to move, but I knew what she meant. They planned to transfer me. To where? I didn't know. But the whispers around school changed after that night. The girls stopped looking me in the eyes. The staff started speaking in codes around me. The headmistress refused to acknowledge my existence. I had become radioactive. A walking secret. Then, just like that, I was gone. They said I fell sick. That I was sent home to recover. That my body couldn't fight the infection. But the truth is, they delivered me to another AL1VE. One who didn't like to be disrespected. And this time, they didn't plan to bring me back. That night, I wrote in my diary with trembling hands. "I can feel death circling. If I don't return, this book must. If you're reading this, you now know what they did. Don't let them bury it with me." I tore out the final pages. I hid them in different places, inside textbooks, behind the altar curtain, under a floorboard in dorm B. And the last copy? I left it inside a girl's locker. Ada's. She'd know what to do. They thought they silenced me. They didn't. They thought burying my body would end the story. It only began a war. Because even from the grave, I'm still speaking. They buried me quietly. No school announcement. No candlelight memorial. Not even a phone call to my parents until 2 days later. Your daughter died of sudden illness. Very tragic. She was such a good girl. My mother wailed. My father went silent. But they never questioned it. Why would they? They trusted the system. They trusted the uniform. They trusted the lies. Back at school, the girls were told to pray for Ivanna and forget. But Ada, she remembered. She found the first page under her pillow, a ripped-out sheet with my handwriting smudged in sweat and fear. If I don't make it out, please find the rest. And don't let them destroy it. She froze. Then she began to search. Every corner. Every locker. Behind the loose tiles in the chapel. She found more pages. Dozens. All dated. All detailed. Names. Faces. Times. She found truth in ink. And suddenly, she wasn't the only one reading. The whispers began to spread. Girls passed pages during night prep. They memorized lines, protected them, made copies. The diary was no longer mine, it became ours. A quiet rebellion swept through the school. Girls began refusing the special outings. Some screamed during roll calls. Others wrote letters home, exposing names. One bold girl slipped a copy of my diary into the offertory basket during Sunday Mass. But secrets like mine don't stay contained for long. One morning, Madame Celine stormed into the dorm with soldiers. Confess, she screamed. Who started this? Silence. She dragged Ada by her hair. Is this your doing? Do you want to end up like her? But Ada just looked her in the eyes and said, You already ended her. We're just making sure the world knows how. That was the day everything exploded. News outlets started getting anonymous packages. Bloggers received scanned pages. Even the school's sponsor, a wealthy politician, got a letter dipped in red ink and sealed with a cross. Soon, the school gates were no longer safe. Police, journalists, angry parents, investigations, shutting down buildings, digging deeper into every corner. My name became headline news, but not as the girl who died, as the girl who spoke from the grave. And guess what? They couldn't silence a ghost. The school is gone now, boarded up, overgrown with weeds. Its name erased from the signpost. Its history wiped clean, or so they thought. But some things can't be erased. In a small living room in Wari, a mother sat on the floor, surrounded by open pages and trembling hands. Her face was pale, eyes red from days without sleep. In front of her lay Ivanna's diary pages held together by worn thread and pain. She held the final page, one that Ada had hand-delivered. The envelope read, For my parents if I don't come back. And then, with her voice cracking but steady, Mama began to read aloud. Dear Mama and Papa, if you're reading this, I guess I didn't make it back. I know you loved me. I know everything you did was meant to keep me safe. The locked gates, the curfews, the warnings. You were trying. But you didn't know that love without freedom becomes a cage. And in that cage, I never learned how to fight back. Her mother paused, covering her mouth, stifling a sob. Her husband sat beside her, staring into nothing, guilt hollowing his chest. She continued, You warned me about boys, about the outside world. But you never warned me that the ones who smile during morning assembly could be the ones who sell girls at night. You didn't tell me that danger doesn't always come with a gun sometimes. It comes with scripture and perfume. I don't blame you. But I needed more than protection. I needed a voice. I needed you to teach me to say no. To scream. To run. Instead, I learned to stay quiet. To be polite. To obey. Even as I bled. Her mother dropped the page, weeping openly now, rocking back and forth. I failed her, she whispered. I failed my baby girl. Her husband held her. We both did. She picked up the last sheet, hands trembling. Please don't let them bury me quietly. Say my name. Tell my story. And next time let your love be my strength, not my silence. Love, Ivanna. That night, they didn't sleep. They printed copies of her diary. They sent them to every parent association, every education board, every human rights group. And for the first time in their lives, her parents stopped being afraid of what people would say. They spoke. They told the truth. And because of that, other daughters were saved. Ivanna didn't get justice in life, but her words became justice in death. The end. Can love still be called love when it blinds you to your child's silent cries for help?